the Hustla kitchen. We're making one of my favorite pasta dishes for spring, and that is crawfish pasta. I have a pound of Louisiana crawfish tails thawing out in some ice water. If you can't get this where you are, this recipe can easily be done the same by adding shrimp instead of crawfish. Come on, I'll show you how. So my crawfish are here defrosting. I have a few stalks of celery with the green leafy parts. I have half of a white onion. This was a really large onion. And then my pepper plate. And this is optional, but I'm using some colored peppers that I like and a jalapeno. The star of the show is this block of cream cheese that we will add to the pasta last minute, but I like to take it out and go ahead and have it defrost on your counter while you're putting the rest of the pasta together. I have a pot of salted water going on the stove, and I'm just gonna let that go. In here, I have avocado oil, about 2 tablespoons, with another 2 tablespoons or so of butter. I like to do a butter oil combination for this recipe just to add to the richness of the flavor. So we'll go ahead, get our heat cranked up. So once this starts to bubble, the butter and oil combination, and you don't have to do that. You can use just your favorite oil, but I like the flavor of adding the butter and the oil. Okay, once you get the onion in there, you're going to immediately start to smell that caramelization. We'll cook the onions down until translucent, and I always just go ahead and add my celery. This was, you know, I think 3 stalks. We'll give that a good stir, and then I'm gonna let this go about 5 to 7 minutes on a medium heat, and we'll start to add everything from that delicious pepper plate. And I always put my garlic in last because I am so scared that I'm gonna burn it. With the addition of the butter, it can get a little bit hotter faster, and so you don't wanna burn and get that funky garlic taste. You want it to be light and fresh. All right, we've got a nice caramelization going here. So I'm gonna add in this pepper plate, everything from in here. We'll bring that sizzle back up. And like I said, it's optional how many peppers you wanna put in here. I am adding extra vegetables to this because a lot of times when I make this recipe, I'll make it with some crumbled Italian sausage, but it is spring and I'm trying to lighten everything up. So I'm doing extra vegetables instead of adding sausage, but that is a good tip if you're making this on a colder month. So one of my tricks for this dish is I will put the onions and the celery in first and let them get so soft and cooked down that they sort of begin to disappear. When you add the peppers seem to stand out more and be a little brighter. I don't want to cook my peppers down too much because we're going to add some other things to this like spices, tomato paste, a little bit of broth. So the peppers will have more time to cook in some of that broth. We still have to add the crawfish and the cream cheese. Let me show you what's next. We're going to start adding some dry seasoning. So I always start with just a little bit of salt and pepper. And then I use a Cajun spice blend and I add a few pinches of thyme. Now you want to be careful when you use a Cajun spice blend that if it has salt in it, then you want to be careful adding your own salt. And then because we want it to be spicy, I'll pinch some cayenne. We'll do 2 pinches. And then I'm gonna wash my hands, that way I don't accidentally touch my face. Once I get my dry spices in, I give them sort of a swirl or two, a lap or two around the pan, just to toast out some of the flavor. We still haven't put our garlic in here yet, but we're going to, don't worry. And then I kind of make like a little hole, like a little well. And just right from these handy little jars, I'll squeeze about 2 tablespoons, 2.5 tablespoons of tomato paste. And then I kind of toast it. Can start to incorporate some vegetables, kind of. I don't really know why I do this. I should ask somebody in my family, but my mom did it, my dad does it whenever they're making any kind of Cajun or Creole food, so I do it. And then I'll add a little bit of this broth and the vegetables will start to make popping noises. I use about half of these, one of these little things. So it's like 1/4 cup. But I usually always have some sort of chicken broth or vegetable broth in my refrigerator at all times. I like to replace, anytime I'm making rice or quinoa, I always replace the water that the recipe calls for with a broth, even just a vegetable broth. It just deepens the flavor. So if you're doing meal prep and you have to cook a lot of quinoa or rice, that's my hot tip. Okay, now it's time for the garlic. That's 3 cloves of garlic crushed. So we'll add that in. Now that I have some liquid in the pan from the chicken broth, I feel comfortable bringing my garlic into the mix. I'm gonna let this sit on the stove. I'm gonna cover it, bring the heat down, and we'll let it sit for about 5 or 7 minutes. I might not be able to resist, and I'll lift it up once or twice and give it a stir. All right, we're gonna set that aside. And that garlic smell's coming out. You've got the earthiness from all these vegetables. The next step, this is about the juice of half a lemon. I like to cook that in. Another good thing to do for this is just to splash in a little white wine if you have it. We don't have any in the house right now, so I used lemon juice. It's time to put these crawfish tails in. And these are fully cooked, so it won't really take long to heat these through. And as I continue to heat the crawfish through, I sort of break off pieces of the cream cheese and then incorporate it in. You can add a little more broth if you need it, if it looks a little too thick, but you don't want to add too much because we also will scoop out a little pasta water before we put our pasta in, before we drain our pasta. And sometimes I'll use pasta water to thicken up this dish. And so I'll show you how to do that. As always, our unsponsored jovial pasta. This is my favorite gluten-free pasta. I'm making this dish for someone that has a gluten allergy. So, not sponsored by, but totally love jovial pasta with brown rice flour. Woo! Get back in there. So with this pasta, I always cook it 1.5 or 2 minutes under what the time says on the box, because after we drain it and add it to the pasta sauce, the crawfish sauce, it's gonna have a little carryover time cooking, so you don't want it to be too tough. So just keep it a minute or so under and drain it, add it. All right, our pasta, ooh! That's how you know you're having a good time, when there's all kinds of racket. All right, our pasta is done. Like I said, I cooked it about a minute less than what the package said, a minute or 2, depends on how high you have your water going. We're gonna add this in, mix it in. It's that water I was telling you about. We'll just start with 1/2 cup and just gently mix this. Okay, now it's time for my favorite part, and that is just heaps of Parmesan cheese. I like to put it right on top. You don't want to let anybody miss an opportunity for Parmesan cheese. And then I always put extra on the table. Top it with some fresh parsley, so it gives it a pop of green. I love the way fresh parsley smells. It makes the kitchen smell very herbaceous. And then I'll also take a few lemon slices and put it on the table with the Parmesan cheese in case anyone wants to brighten up the flavor of their crawfish pasta with a little extra lemon. That's how you do it, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and please share this video with your friends if you think they would like it. Bye, guys. Keep hustling.